it's Dr. Biology here, and this is GCSE Combined Science Biology for both Foundation and Higher Tier. Paper 2, kind of last minute revision to help you with the Paper 2. Hope Paper 1 went well. I thought the paper was pretty good, so let's make this paper very good too. So just a reminder, Paper 2 is going to be on Monday, 9th of June, and it's in the morning. AM is the morning, and it will be 1 hour, 15 minutes. Very quickly, I think you already know this, but you're going to need to revise everything. Hopefully you have. If you're looking for past paper exam questions, it's really important not just to look at knowledge. You need to practice those past papers or even topic-based exam questions that are all on drbiology.uk. Learn keywords, very important, all the keywords. I'm going to go through some keywords today. Know your command words: describe, explain, evaluate, compare, contrast, calculate, all those kinds of things. So again, they're on drbiology.uk. So let's get started. The first thing to say is I'm not going to go through the whole of Paper 2, but these are kind of the major things that I'm hoping will come up in some shape or form in Paper 2. So first of all, very quickly, some basic key definitions. So they might say, what is a hormone? So it's a chemical messenger produced by glands or in glands, and it's carried by the blood to target organs. What is a gland? Well, it makes a substance for release, such as a hormone. And then target organs, they have receptor molecules on their cell surfaces which recognize a specific hormone. If you're doing foundations here, they may like you to label things. So they might give you some boxes and say, for example, what does the pituitary gland do? And then they'll give you 3 different answers and you've got to put a line to the correct answer. So it's really important you learn these. Maybe as well where they are in the body. You might be given a picture of a body and have to label different parts of the body. Okay. Menstrual cycle will come up in both foundation and higher tier. Expect to see lots of graphs. They do like lots of graphs, but these are the main things you need to know about the hormone, where it's produced and its role. So hormone FSH, it's the pituitary gland, which is in your brain, and it causes the egg to mature in your ovary, but also it stimulates the ovaries to release estrogen. Estrogen is made in the ovaries, and it eventually stops or inhibits FSH being produced. It does repair, thicken and maintain the uterus lining, and it stimulates the pituitary gland to release LH. Excuse me, I'll burp that again. LH. So that triggers ovulation, and sometimes they'll show you a graph and say, with LH on, and they'll say, when does it trigger ovulation? So wherever it's the highest, you do a ruler down to the day and then you record the day. Progesterone maintains the lining of the uterus during the middle part of the menstrual cycle, and also if you're pregnant as well. Control of glucose. So diabetes, this is always a popular one. So you need to know glucose, as you know, is needed by cells for respiration. It's important for glucose in the blood to be maintained. Insulin is produced by the pancreas that regulates glucose. So you need to know the action of insulin. So what effect does it have? Well, when you've got low blood sugars, insulin isn't secreted, and you actually secrete another. If you're doing higher tier, you need to know that it secretes glucagon at low blood glucose. High glucose, insulin is secreted into the blood, and then in low glucose does not convert glucose into glycogen, and therefore it increases it, whereas where you got high glucose, it gets stored in your liver as glycogen. Diabetes, very popular again. So type 1, you need to know, it's where your pancreas fails to produce insulin. So it's usually early age, controlled by injecting insulin. You need to monitor your blood sugar regularly. You need to look at your food, your diet, so not eating food that raises your blood sugar too much, and exercise as well. Type 2 is usually later onset, so more common in older people, where your cells, so the kind of target cells, no longer respond to insulin produced. So you control it by a carbohydrate controlled diet, not just a controlled diet, it's got to be carbohydrates, and an exercise regime, so regular exercise. And there is a correlation, so one of the key risk factors is obesity of diabetes. Sense organs, great. So foundations here, again, they like you to label the different sense organs, but remember they have receptors. So for vision, our receptors are our eyes, and we're stimulated by light. And I'd like you to have a look at all of those. I won't go through all of them. You can pause and have a look at that. Reflex actions didn't come up. So again, very popular. Fast automatic responses to stimuli, bypasses the conscious part of the brain, speeds up a response by using a relay neuron, and reflexes reduce your chances of being injured, so it's protective. You might have to label the parts. Okay, so the match there, the flame, that's the stimulus, and then you've got pain receptors in your skin, and the nerve impulse travels through the sensory neuron, across a synapse, across a relay neuron, which is in the not in the conscious part of your brain, okay, and then motor neuron to the effector, which is either a muscle or a gland. So one way you can remember it is something called sensory. So sensory, it goes out, relay, motor. Sensory, relay, motor. Reaction times. Okay, so this is required practical. I won't go through this too much. You can look at my video. I'll put the video details down below. Okay, and that's worth looking at. So basically, you might remember it's about catching a ruler, okay, and you're measuring the time it takes for you to react. So you could test maybe left or right hand, drinking caffeine, taking drugs or medicines, gender, age. Okay, so anything you change in the experiment is the independent variable. The dependent variable is when you drop the ruler, you measure the distance in centimetres it's fallen, and then you can use a table, so they might show you a table, to calculate the actual reaction time in seconds. So that's called the dependent variable. So then they might say, well, how would you control certain variables? Same position of the arm, the same distance between your fingers, okay, same person dropping the ruler, all on my video, and I would watch that because it wasn't on last year. Mean median mode, you might need to know that in terms of calculations. Resolution as well, you need to know about resolution. So smaller the resolution, the more precise your data will be. You could improve the resolution by using, for example, rather than using a ruler to measure your reaction times, maybe use a computer or light gates connected to a computer. Inheritance, variation and evolution, definitely know your keywords. You need to know what genes, chromosomes, you need to be able to label where they are in a cell. Okay, DNA as well. Right, asexual versus sexual reproduction. So you revise sexual reproduction from paper 1, but they could ask you in paper 2 about it as well. I think it's worth learning those. Okay, so asexual is one parent, so it's faster. Populations can increase rapidly, but disadvantages, it does not lead to variations. There's no variation, so one disease could come along and kill all of the population, and they're only suited to one habitat as well. They can't adapt. Whereas sexual reproduction, 2 parents, so you get lots of variation. Species are adapted to new environments, okay, due to that variation, and therefore they can survive longer, but it's slower, and also it doesn't increase populations rapidly. Time and energy are needed to find a mate. It's not possible it's not possible for an isolated individual to reproduce. Genetic disorders, right, so you will need to know all of those keywords, okay, even if you're doing foundation, you'll need to know those keywords. But I'm going to go straight on to the genetic disorders. 2 genetic disorders you need to know: polydactyly, cystic fibrosis. However, in the exam they might show you a different disease, so just be aware if it's a dominant allele, it works out exactly the same as polydactyly, not symptoms obviously, but the way that you show it. If it's recessive allele like cystic fibrosis, it's very similar. So polydactyly, you have extra fingers or toes. It's caused by one dominant allele, mutated dominant allele of a gene. So as you can see, that you might be asked to do a Punnett square. When you're asked to do a Punnett square, make sure you clearly show the father and mother alleles, okay, they're gametes, all right, and then you do a cross. And when you do the cross, it's really important you show which one has the disease and which one doesn't. And then they might ask you what's the probability or proportion that have the disease. So in this case, it will be 50%, because you can see that there's 2. So there's a 50% chance of getting polydactyly. Recessive alleles is a bit different with cystic fibrosis. So basically, cystic fibrosis, first of all, 3 words: thick, sticky mucus on the lungs, digestive system, and reproductive organs. Okay, the only way you can get those symptoms is having 2 defective recessive alleles. If you have 1 recessive allele, you're called a carrier. Carriers, they don't have the condition themselves, but they can carry 1 faulty gene. So as you can see in this example, both mother and father are carriers. So we do Punnett square, and we can see, if they get 2 recessive alleles, they have cystic fibrosis. So there's a 1 in 4 chance, or 25% chance. It's a 50% chance of being a carrier. As you can see, there's 2 out of the 4. And then there's 1 out of 4 unaffected, so 25% chance that they're unaffected. So just do that very carefully. You can get about 5 marks doing Punnett squares like that, so it's well worth you having a go at them. Sex determination, this didn't come up, so again they might ask you to determine. So you need to know human body cells have 23 pairs of chromosome in the nucleus. That's 46 chromosomes. Males have 2 sex chromosomes, X and Y. Females have X and X, okay? And they might ask you to do a Punnett square. If they do, it will look like that. And 50%, it's a 1-to-1 ratio basically. So half the offspring will be girls, half will be boys. Classification, again, didn't come up. A good way of remembering Linnaeus's system of classification. So that's quite a lot to remember, isn't it? So I always tell my class, king prawn curry or fat greasy sausage. You just got to know what that means, obviously. But king prawn curry or fat greasy sausage is a good way of remembering Linnaeus's system of classification. Sometimes they talk about binomial systems, so that's naming animals or plants or organisms. So we are Homo sapiens. Homo is the genus, species is the sapien, okay? And it allows scientists to accurately identify individual species. Linnaeus's system wasn't brilliant because he didn't look at fungi, moss, lichens, bacteria. And over time, scientific advances have improved, so biochemistry, microscopes, DNA advances, and so we ended up with the 3-domain system. So I think 3-domain system you probably need to know for higher tier, more than foundation. So it's divided, the system is divided into what we call archaea, bacteria, and eukaryota. They might also ask you to look at evolutionary trees. Okay, so for example, C and D are more closely related together than they are to B, for example. Okay, if you want to find out their ancestral species, you need to go all the way back, and the common ancestor is right at the beginning of the tree. Natural selection. So Darwin, you need to know about Darwin's theory of evolution, theory of natural selection, sorry. So variation, there is variation between individuals of the same species. There is a mutation. Okay, so random mutations mean that some individuals have an advantage and therefore more suited to survive in a particular environment. They then grow to adulthood and they pass those genes on to the next generation. Charles Darwin was not accepted at the time because there's gaps in the fossil evidence. They didn't understand DNA and genetics, and it went against the religious beliefs of that time. Ecology, last section. You do need to know all those definitions. They love those definitions, and they say learn them in the spec. They say to learn these, so please do learn those. Carbon cycle, possible 6 marker. It didn't come up last year, and that looks complicated, but I'm going to just show you an exemplar. Before I do, there are 3 processes you need to be aware of. 4 actually, sorry. Photosynthesis, that removes carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Respiration, so all living things respire, they're releasing CO2 into the air. Okay, some of it is stored and dissolved in water or oceans. Some of it is released by decomposers, so things like bacteria and fungi are going to respire and release CO2 into the air. Combustion, so fossil fuels, obviously over time organic materials buried becomes fossil fuels, and through burning or combustion it can then release CO2. So those are all the kind of main processes. This question here, if I was you, I would learn it. So describe how living things are involved in the constant cycling of carbon. I'm not going to go through it, so I suggest you pause and have a look yourself. Abiotic, biotic factors expect data and lots of information. They might talk about competition. They might talk about adaptation as well. So they might give you pictures of plants and animals you've never seen before, and you need to say why they are adapted to their environment. So I would say just use your common sense for those. Abiotic is non-living factors. Biotic is living factors. Required practical, this is very popular each year about using quadrats to work out the populations of plants. Again, check out my video. I'll put the information down below, so do check that out. Food chains. Okay, so again, food chains, if you're doing higher tier, you do need to know these words quite well. You might have to look at food webs as well and describe what happens to a population when something disappears. Biodiversity, looking at the numbers of different species, so more biodiverse, the more healthy the habitat is. Obviously affected by human populations, so you do need to know about water, land and air pollution. Higher tier, definitely eutrophication, so this is water. So when you stick sewage, feces or urine into a stream or pond, which is, as you know through the news, has been happening regularly, this is what happens. Okay, so again, might be good for a 6 marker, might be good to learn this one through. Deforestation did not come up. That will come up in foundation as well as higher. Okay, so why do we cut down forests? Well, basically cleared for land to raise cattle, so to produce beef, plant rice or plant crops such as coffee, palm oil as well. So you might know about palm oil. Land is cleared for mining, so you know, in terms of open cast mines, taking out coal or gold, things like that. Land is used to grow biofuels. Certain parts of the world, they fuel their cars with biofuel. Forests are cut down for wood, for building, for paper. Forests are cleared for farming as well. So it's not just rainforests, it's also forests in this part of the world as well. Effects. So they will give you some information usually, but here are the effects. So basically, if you don't have any trees, you can't remove lots of carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Okay, it can't be stored in the tree. Also, if you cut down trees, there's going to be loads of decay going on by microbes, and they're releasing lots of CO2. Also, it's going to be burnt as well. So to get rid of the debris, they burn the woodland. And that releases carbon dioxide. That builds up in the atmosphere, causes greenhouse effect, global warming. So this might be linked to global warming. Habitat loss, reduced biodiversity of all the living things, and also you get soil erosion. So all the minerals and nutrients from the soil can get washed away. Right, okay, so that's me. If you need any extra help there, it's all on Dr. Biology. This PowerPoint as well, if you want the PowerPoint, you can download it from Dr. Biology. I really hope things go well for you guys. I'm really rooting for you. Attempt every single question. Don't give up. Work to the end and you'll do fine. Good luck, and I'll see you soon.